What's going on, gardeners? It is Sunday, March 13th, and it is a cold, late winter day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. Today, I'm going to show you all a better way to plant onions in your garden that will both save you a ton of space in your garden and also add a measure of pest deterrence that will last for months. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated. A few weeks ago, I showed you how to start your onion transplants from seed, and I will make sure to link to that video above so you have a complete guide that will teach you how to do so. Now, my onion transplants are finally ready, and I can't wait to put them out in the garden. If you watch a lot of onion growing videos on YouTube and you look at how most other gardeners grow their onions, you'll see one thing in common. The overwhelming majority of gardeners grow their onions in a single bed. They will have either a plot on an earth bed or an entire raised bed or several raised beds dedicated only to onions. And this is a mistake. And that is because onions are a fantastic plant to interplant with other species of vegetables. And that is for two distinct reasons. Number one, onions have a very shallow root system. Because the root system is shallow, they don't directly compete with other annual vegetables that have deeper root systems. So you can mix them in between each other and maximize the space of your garden without having the roots directly compete and negatively impact each other. And number two, and this is the biggest thing that a lot of gardeners miss out on, onions are part of the allium classification of plants. They have natural compounds in them that repel pests. Maybe you've heard in the past that interplanting garlic is one way of a natural insect pest deterrent. Well, the same thing holds true with onions. So if you interplant your onions with very pest-prone, more deeply rooted plants like tomatoes or peppers or cucumbers or squash, you can actually get the benefits of maximizing the yield of your garden while also using the onions as a natural means of keeping insect pests out of your garden. Last year, I experimented with interplanting garlic with my tomatoes all throughout my garden, and it worked tremendously well at keeping pests off of my tomato plants and repelling all of those annoying insects. It worked so well that I pre-planned my garden, and I planted all of my garlic around my garden, leaving gaps in between to place all of my tomatoes in preparation. This year, I'm also growing several hundred onion plants. That includes yellow onions, red onions, shallots, and bunching onions. Between all of these alliums, there are several hundred plants throughout my garden. Rather than dedicate 3 entire raised beds or more to plant these plants, it makes a lot more sense to interplant them around the garden, because if I plant them around the garden strategically placed, not only will I be able to squeeze in way more plants overall and have much more productivity per square feet, but I will also have the benefit of spreading the pest protective scent of these allium plants all throughout my garden to try and repel pests all throughout the garden instead of isolating these wonderful plants to just a few beds. This raised bed that you see right here is where I'm going to plant most of my peppers this upcoming spring in a few weeks once the frost stops. I'm going to strategically plant my yellow onions in between the various rows of peppers ahead of time. Since onions are frost hardy, I will be able to put them in several weeks ahead of the peppers in order to get them established. Peppers are quite vulnerable to pests, so being able to interplant the onions right now should add a degree of pest protection in my pepper beds this spring and summer. In order to prepare for placing the onions, I already pre-dug some of the soil out. I just stuck my fingers into the loose soil and just wiggled them around. And in order to space things properly, remember, a properly sized onion is something like 3 to 4 inches in diameter. So you want to be able to give each individual onions about 6 inches of spacing. That will allow each individual onion to develop a nice 3 to 4 inch diameter bulb and also have a little bit of a buffer of 1 to 2 inches in between each individual bulb. Don't overcrowd your onions, or it may make the onions smaller than they would otherwise be in loose, loamy soil spaced with generous spacing. Now that the planting holes have been dug, we want to pre-fertilize the planting holes. And the first thing I'm going to use is one of these organic, slow-release granulated type fertilizers. And this right here is the Walmart Expert Gardener 356 NPK. This is what I'm choosing to use, but you can use anything around a 555 or a 444 or a 454. just make sure it is balanced, all NPK is represented, and it is an organic slow release type, because these have to be processed by the soil, the microbiome naturally found in the soil, so they will take many weeks and months to break down and feed your onions over time. Then I'm going to supplement that with this organic bone meal product. This is a rich source of phosphorus and calcium that again will take weeks and months to decompose. The phosphorus and calcium is great for root development, and that is primarily what your onion is. You're trying to eat that bulbous root. So this is going to be great for long-term health of the plants. So we're going to start off with our organic slow release fertilizer, and we're just going to take a handful and we're going to sprinkle that throughout the planting holes of each individual row of onion. Try to get about 2 tablespoons or so around each individual planting hole, roughly. Now that the slow release fertilizer has been placed, we're going to do the same thing with the bone meal. We're just going to take a handful and lightly dust each individual row and try to get it into each individual planting hole. Probably about anywhere from 1 to 2 teaspoons worth in each planting hole. If you grew your onions from seed like I did, you probably overseeded your onion tray, and that means that each individual seed cell will contain more than 1 onion, and that's what you see right here. Now, onions are very hardy, so you basically have a choice. You could either take a pair of scissors and you can chop off the onion you don't want, or you can try and manually separate them. And to manually separate them, you basically just have to pull them apart, and as long as you're very gentle, they will come apart fairly easily. So here you can see that onion has been separated and that onion has been separated without too much effort. Like I said, onions are very hardy, so you can separate them if you want like that, and both will survive the transplant process with a very high rate of success. Once you separate them, all you have to do is just kind of fan out the roots of the onion, place them in each individual transplanting hole, and then backfill around them and press the soil down. And that is all there is to it when it comes to transplanting onions. It really is that simple, and now I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of my other onion transplants. Now, in the process of separating all of my onion transplants, I came across these subpar onion transplants. You can see how small they are compared to the much larger seedlings that are behind me. Those are really nice and a nice generous size. So you can make the call if you actually want to take the time and plant the seedlings that are very small, or if you just want to compost them, because if they are lagging far behind, they may take a longer time to establish, or they may not generate as much of a large bulb as some of the other more dominant onion transplants would. Now that all the onion plants have been transplanted out into the garden, we need to water in things very, very well to both help allow the onion transplants to establish a root system and to also begin the breakdown and decay of the organic fertilizer products. And here's an overview shot of how I transplanted the onions. You can see how I spaced them out. In each of those gaps, I will be able to place about 2 rows of peppers with 4 pepper plants in each row. I like to give my pepper plants about 1 square foot each, so I will still be able to fit a good quantity of peppers out in this bed. And that right there is a much smarter and more space-efficient way to transplant your onions and other alliums out into your garden, while also having pest repellent properties throughout your entire garden. Now, is this method of planting onions going to solve all of your pest problems in your garden? No, of course not, but it is going to help to a degree. It will add some amount of protection. I've seen it with my own eyes. And remember, it's not about doing things perfectly. It's about every year making little incremental changes to make things better that add up to big changes over time. And that's what this method is. It's a little change that you can make to make your garden more space efficient and also have better pest management principles throughout your garden. garden. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you're notified when we publish more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the gardening products that I used in this video or in my garden in general, check out my Amazon storefront link in the video description for a collection of everything I use. Also, while you're there, check out the link to my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video. Hey Dale, do you want to go for a WALK? You know what a you know what WALK spells? WALK spells walk. You want to go for a walk? Ooh, let's go, buddy. Let's go get your harness. Let's go get your harness. Oh, there it is. Let's go get it.